you can't hide your body. You got one body, and you got to go to the grocery store, and you got to go to the event. And so, the body is just sometimes manifesting some of the things that you are internally dealing with. And
welcome to another episode of the Fresh Leadership Podcast. We are super excited about today's conversation because it is a conversation that you asked for. You personally asked for this. You wanted to grow in your physical habits and in your health. And so we're bringing to you a very good friend of mine, my buddy, Carson Case. And Carson is from Orlando, Florida. He is in a very different climate than we are right now. So he was just telling us it was a little cold there in Orlando, Florida here near the end of the year, that it was a balmy 61 degrees. Ooh. So super frigid. I would actually give anything for that right now, being about 39 degrees here today. But Carson is a father of two boys under two. He's married to his sweetheart, Erin. And I got to know Carson through my brother Matt, and through Instagram. I followed Carson when he was a young adult pastor for a bunch of years, and had just written his first book. And then Carson has also been a campus pastor, and now he focuses full time. His ministry today is to help people maximize their health through Bulletproof human performance, BHP, baby. And Bulletproof is actually something that I have taken advantage of. We did, both Rob and I did 40 Bullets, a program called 40 Bullets, multiple times. And it's helped us to level up our habits and our health. And so, Carson, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do? Because I'm going to butcher some of it. You've helped a lot of people, a lot of church leaders, a lot of young leaders, a lot of pastors. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, sir. No, appreciate the intro. Grateful that you guys are having me on. And, it's really cool to sit in this seat. I'm 28. As you said, I've got two incredible boys, got a wife, got a home here in Orlando, Sunshine State. But, I think our life and my life from about 20 to 28 was very unique and really just leading me up to leading Bulletproof Human Performance, building that, growing that. Working to just impact people, specifically, though, in the Christian realm as well. And I led a young adults movement called Soul Young Adults for 4 years of my life, early 20s. I got married early. We made some moves early, which led us to Charleston to be a campus pastor, as you said. And, was really excited in that space. But as a lot of us kind of felt the heat of, about a year into that job and that position, I'm a campus pastor and I'm 24 years old. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I love leadership. I love people. I love community development. I feel like just anywhere that there's positive energy and just a want to grow and get better, that's contagious to me. That excites me. And, but in that first year of doing that, COVID hit. So I think COVID, in a very fun, unique way, maybe we have some nightmares of that, but it was a slingshot. It was a catalyst. It was a launching pad for me and probably so many others. The word entrepreneur, I think, comes up a lot in my realm and maybe what I do today. But I didn't always see it as that. Again, going back, I love Jesus. I love people. I was excited to help. I was excited to kind of push and to motivate. And so, really what I found through just a short season of time, we get pregnant. Erin gets pregnant with our son, Cash, my first son. And we're in Charleston, South Carolina. And as things change and COVID changes things, the dynamics of church. And, I was always in the fitness realm. And, a quick tidbit of 15 seconds is I had lower back surgery at 17 years old. I was a pretty high level athlete where I came from. Athletics was kind of my world in my life. And then through that injury, I gave my life to Jesus. And so wow. Training and people and going the extra mile and getting up and staying late, those were some of the things that I loved and that I enjoyed. And so I think being in ministry is really cool because sometimes we just see it as this is what I do and this is how I do it. And, this is the money that I make. And, I'm just going to trust God and I go home and I do this and I do that. But, the way that I read the scriptures, and I just wanted to shout out my mentor in my life, especially early on, Tim Caldwell. He taught me how to read the scriptures. He taught me how to read the Bible through and through every Tuesday and Thursday for 8 months of my life post-surgery. And that changed my life. And what I see with Jesus is the same way that I really try to approach my life is I love how Jesus just walked and he saw this potential just as a human, but also as a leader. He saw potential and he wanted to pull that out. He wanted to press buttons, ask questions. And then the other thing that I love just looking at the scriptures is he walked with them. He didn't tell them what to do and then hope that they did it. He said, here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to walk with you, and I think for me, I just always began to see ministry that way for as long as I was taught at 17, 18. So, now being 28, we 3 years ago, we moved from Charleston and Orlando. I don't know if anybody asked me. I think a lot of my personality and lifestyle is, hey, I've got faith. I've got prayer. I'm going to launch a Hail Mary. If it feels right to me, I'm rolling with it. And, praise God for an incredible wife and Aaron, because I think together as a team, we just get excited about risk. I believe we're risk takers. So for us, it was, hey, this seems right, feels right. God's doing something here. I've got a fitness background. I love leadership. I was in leadership roles in ministry at a pretty young age. So I feel like, and I don't know why, praise God for it, but I was in positions in my early to mid 20s to lead and to influence. And so, but I also love fitness and I also enjoyed the story and the background that God had kind of brought me through. And I don't even know, the name Bulletproof Human Performance and what I run is, I don't know how it came about, but I actually have this tattoo and I've got a few tattoos, both arms, but I've got this tattoo of a wolf. And I don't know why, but I love wolves. And I feel like wolves, they're tenacious, they're gritty, they're resourceful, they run in a pack, but sometimes, I think we throw around this phrase of lone wolf, and then we'll throw around a phrase of the strength is in the pack. So in the creation of what I saw, which I don't know if there's Enneagram lovers out there, but I see myself as a type 1 Enneagram. So I'm always reforming, creating, vision casting. I think a lot of my life is just like, what is the world that I see? And I know this is a very long answer to Bulletproof Human Performance, but for me, it was, I see a lot of leaders in ministry. I was around a lot of pastors. I was around a lot of people who had high capacity, right? And either people are walking as a lone wolf or they're walking with the pack. And I think, different seasons require different things of us. But that was really the reason why I got this tattoo. I started this kind of vision casting on a notepad, just like the one in front of me. And I said, what does bulletproof look like? What is reaching and impacting humans, not just church leaders, not just fitness people, not just these people, but just humans, just all people everywhere. And then performance, I kind of came about that because I'm like, man, to me, it's not, and I'll explain more on this, but it's not just the gym and it's not just fitness, but I want to be able to perform well. And I want to be able to give my best at anything that God ushers me into. And so that's how we started Bulletproof Human Performance. And that birthed a program, which we talked about on the side is 40 Bullets. And so I move voluntarily. One little thing I might add in there that I just feel like is really important right now is at a young age, I had a lot of social media influence. As you sit here and you're talking to me now, I don't really think about it much, nor do I care about it much. But I think for me, I was in a position, I just feel like this is really important to this podcast, where my social media influence grew really quickly and my character did not grow with it. Wow. And that was not something that I was investing a lot of time in because we like people following us. We like the attention. We like the energy and the excitement. And so at the pinpoint in my life when ministry is frustrating, COVID is happening, I have a son on the way, my first child. I'm 2 years into marriage, and I'm almost searching for things that make me happy and passionate and joyous in the light of the gifts that God had given me. And I just did not feel that way. I felt like it was social media and it was church and it was requirements. And then you're feeling the pressures of the world. You're watching the news. And I think I was just in a capsule of, Lord, like, fire me up for what I love to do and what I'm good at. And I know that in your hand, it is a ministry and it is these gifts and leadership. I've had multiple people in my life, which is weird to talk about, but I've had multiple people say, hey, like, the gift of leadership is on you, like, multiple times in my life. And I never really knew what that looked like, but I think it was me stepping out voluntarily of the world I was in. And I said, hey, I don't want to just start a business. And I love how you said that earlier, John, but I want to start a movement and a ministry that really mirrors the life that I see and the life that fires me up and charges me up. Not that my life's perfect or what I see fit for Bulletproof Human Performance is necessarily for everybody, but I want to be able to gift that to everybody. I want to be able to take what God has given me and gift it to the world, and do it, more so with humility and grace. So we moved to Orlando. I start Bulletproof Human Performance. We start a program called 40 Bullets. We reach a lot of people in the ministry realm. And ultimately, what is Bulletproof Human Performance? What's it designed to do? Why do we exist? We want to build stronger humans through fitness, mindset, and lifestyle. In every ministry circle that I was in, I was always the fitness guy. I was always the discipline guy. I was always like, we're here, but Carson's got to hit push-ups, or Carson's got to go get this food, or maybe Carson's got to go on a run. And it was always a little goofy to me, but I think it has led me to this moment where I now lead this brand. I moved my family. I really did step out of what I was in for all of my 20s, but I found a lot of joy and a lot of confirmation with God of, this is who I am, and this is what I'm good at, and this is what I love and enjoy. And I pray to God that it's not perfect, but I pray to God that people would kind of seek that and find that with the Lord of like, I wanted to wake up and get fired up to help people. And I wanted to do it in the unique way that he gifted me. And that's what the Lord gave me through BHP and through some of the programs that we've done and moving my family to Florida. And so a massively long answer, but that's as I sit here now.
Love it. Love it. And I think it's funny because I remember following you as a young adults pastor. Your influence was with the athletes. You were reaching kids on the college campus and football players and athletes because of the unique gifts, passions, and purpose that God had given you, even as a young adult pastor. And now what's really cool, I just thinking about this as you're sharing all of that, I think this is incredible. And I want to say this, I think this is important to unpack because there's some of you out there that feel God calling you, but you're not sure how he's going to use your passions and your giftings in the calling. Trust him. Trust him. It might not make sense and you might not be able to figure it all right now, but he's got you. He gave you those passions and those giftings, and he's not going to let them go to waste. So keep leaning into him, stay close to him, stay in mentorship, stay in discipleship, stay in the word, and watch how God uses it. Here's the cool part. So God was using you as a young adults pastor to minister to athletes. Now God's using you as an athlete to minister to pastors. How crazy is that? Isn't that cool? Like he didn't let any of it go to waste.
And that really, the way that you just said that is very new to me, but it makes a ton of sense. At that point in my life, it was, hey, I'm on a college campus, Coastal Carolina. Shout out to Coastal, small school, 10,000 plus students in Myrtle Beach. And it was very tough to find Christian spaces there. So I think now that I know myself more, I'm like, I want to create something. Where's the influence? Where's the energy? Where are people gathering? Where are people partying? What happens here? Yeah. And I sought out fraternities, sororities, and athletes. And I would just order a bunch of food and I would gather the best of friends and the most trusted people I could find. I'd say, hey, we're going to throw some sort of party and we're going to get a ton of fried chicken and biscuits and we're going to preach the gospel and see who wants to get saved. And boy, was it not perfect, but it worked. And, I would train with some of those guys, and it was very much to your point, John. It was just an intermingling of, gifts and desires and passions. And it was rough. It was different. I was a youngster. I'm 21, but I had some great mentors in my life. I mean, a long list of people who I feel like loved me when I was stupid. They tried to keep me accountable and pray over me and meet with me, and just, they wouldn't go away. So those are things that I feel like I won't forget. Even though I knew that there was a lot of power there was a lot of sharpening and shaping that the Lord did. And your other point that you made, John, I think is great for somebody listening. I think for about 2 years, in my mid-20s, I was doing a lot of high-level influential ministry, some would say, in a lot of spaces, but I wasn't satisfied. I really wasn't. And maybe that was a little bit of a personal problem, but I think I caught myself sometimes saying like, this is fun, this is cool, this is necessary, but it's not what I'm super excited about. And I loved your point to people. And I hope that, maybe somebody that's younger than me could kind of hold on to this. It's like, God wants to do something with that something that you're dreaming about and that you're casting vision for and that you're probably gifted for, that fires you up and just gets you so excited. And I think sometimes we feel, and I felt, man, I'm just in a box, man, it just won't work. It just won't work at this church. It just won't work with this leader. It just won't work with these people. It just won't work with my situation. And that was something for me. I was just like, no, I'm not giving in. Like I've got to figure out how I can do what I feel like the Lord has made me to do outside of this space. And I almost feel like for 2 years, I was kind of caged up because I wasn't trusting God with what I knew he had put in my heart. And I was almost sitting there and I said to a pastor once, I feel like a bird in a cage with his wings clipped working in a church. And then it was just this, supernatural thing. And I think just trust, to your point of like, man, like you can really do it in the way that God's designed you. You just have to step out and take a risk. You just have to step out and do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for kind of unpacking some of that.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. And thank you for the vulnerability and all that too. I think just as beneficiaries of 40 Bullets, we just want to say thank you. Dude, like I completely nerded out doing this stuff too. I literally have Google spreadsheets each day on what I did that day. I don't want to give away everything that I did for 40 Bullets because I think that people should invest in that themselves. But maybe, how about just moving on? Can you just give us a very brief little origin story for 40 Bullets in particular? What is that for people that are inquisitive of what we're talking about right now, et cetera? Would you mind just sharing a little bit? I know you kind of hit on it. I think you mentioned getting people fit physically and mentally, and you mentioned one other thing as well.
Right.
How about just for our listeners, give a summary and an intro to what 40 Bullets is all about.
And I got to pause you because this question is just as much for Rob as it is for all of you listening. Yeah. He was nerding out over this. He's like, no way. I love 40 Bullets. I need to know the origin story. So this is for Rob and this is for all of you listening. What is it? Origin story.
Man, I think it was the perfect season. We're quarantined. I am really just seeking inspiration. Quarantine, it's quiet or it's chaotic. And I also had, and I've talked about this before, and this was why it was really personal to me, because I was looking to level up. I was looking to grow because my first son was on the way. And for anybody that's listening and has kind of been in that season, or maybe you're kind of inching towards that season and we're praying for you to get to that season, there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of, am I doing this right? Am I good? Am I healthy? Am I as great as I could be? And it just, for me, that was always a dream of I want to be a great father and I want to be elite in what I do. And I want my son or sons to be able to kind of see the example I'm setting. So I think it's important to know that kind of the birth of 40 Bullets was just kind of in that mess of 2020. And I thought to myself, what can I put myself through for 30 days, 40 days, 50 days, 100 days that will be extremely hard, but I will benefit in a massive way from it.
Come on.
And I actually was going through Luke 4 about, 40 days and 40 nights and some of those temptations and some of those things. I hope I'm getting it right. I believe it's, Luke 1-4. And I didn't want to over spiritualize it, but I ultimately wanted to say hey, God's breathing on this. I want to be a better believer. I want to be more fit. I want to be stronger, better, faster, more equipped to be a young dad. And I got a lot of inspiration from a 75 Hard, and I was listening to Annie Frisilla. And I think I was with a group of guys and I was like, man, I got this idea. Let's go through 40 days of just some intense training, intense thinking, intense deep dive into the word, and just be very accountable. And so what I did, and I feel like this is something that's always been important to me, is my first thought was, hey, I'm going to put this together and just tell everybody to do it with me, which we ended up doing. But I think an important part is I very much value integrity, and I very much value going first instead of telling everybody to do something they haven't done. I've always been that way, and maybe just praise break for my parents teaching me that. And so I was like, hey, babe, talking to my wife, I'm going to create this thing and I'm going to call it 40 Bullets in alignment with Bulletproof. It's 40 days, 40 bullets, 40 chances, 40 shots and investments in yourself. But before I publicize it, I'm going to do it. And I have to do it. I can't quit. I can't shortchange it. I have to do it almost perfect so that I can feel right in gifting it to other people. And we did it. And it was epic. It was extremely hard because I really didn't let myself have any wiggle room. It changed my brain. It changed my physique. It really changed just the feelings of, again, back to that season of time, just being kind of lonely, kind of looking for something to do. I mean, it really helped me to lock in a sense of personal investment and accountability, but also just strengthening my time and my reflection with God. And then we started kind of branding it and selling it on behalf of Bulletproof Humans. And it was really exciting. I feel like for a lot of people.
That's awesome, bro. I love even the scriptural. I know you said you didn't want to over spiritualize it, but I love that it came out of your time in the Word. And I also love that you said you led yourself first. That's such an important concept. And I think that's an important nugget that we can all grab in this podcast for ourselves. What are you leading? What group of people are you leading that you need to go first and lead yourself first before you ask them to join you in it? So that's beautiful. That's awesome.
Well, and that's even why we're in like season 1 right now with Fresh Leadership Podcast in this community. It's all about habits. And the idea behind that is you don't become your best intentions, but your intentional decisions and disciplines. And that's really what 40 Bullets helped give handles to in my life personally, where it's like, you know what, I do want to up my fitness game a little bit more. I actually do want to become a little bit more disciplined. And I still have so much growth that I'm going after in my own life. I've come a long way, but I still got a long way to go. I was in a place in ministry, Carson, a number of years ago where, I mean, similar to you, but maybe I was on the wrong side of the story that you were sharing. So I had a 1-year-old son, and I was a few years into my marriage, also leading a great young adult ministry in an incredible part of our country. And I remember coming home and from work doing ministry and having zero energy left to be present with my wife and son. I was out of shape. I hadn't been to the gym in I don't know how many years. Was kind of lazy with my food habits as well. And I remember also in a similar time, and this is just me being really transparent. So Fresh Leadership community, like, here's my heart on display. I was in a season of depression for a bit as well, where ministry on pretty much all stretches of the imagination was firing on all cylinders. Like, it was exploding, booming, kind of like what you were mentioning with social media. The ministry was growing, but my character was more stagnant than I would like to admit it was. And kind of fell into a depression. I remember lying on my floor and thinking the whole reason why Hannah and I wanted to have kids at a young age is because I didn't want to just be a present dad. I wanted to be an active dad throughout their entire lives. And here I am, I'm in my mid-20s at that point. And I'm like, I'm being tired out by my 1-year-old. And I'm like, that shouldn't be the case. I want to be the type of dad that tires out my kids, not vice versa.
Yeah.
Good.
And you know, first going back to the gym after that time, there was still some shame that I had to work off of me, just to be completely honest. Part of what was keeping me from going to the gym was there are guys there that are just in so much better shape than me. And, the gym in some ways can always be, I'm not going to say what I was about to say. I'm actually censoring myself. Thank you, God, for filter. But, a little bit of sizing up is kind of where I was going with that. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And instead, Lord, I need you to first address the shame that's in my heart that's keeping me from doing it. Like, if I'm going to be honest with myself, I need to stop coddling my own excuses.
Wow.
And actually start making some changes in my life, because even more than my family needs me, I need to do this for myself. I just know I'm not bringing my best to my ministry, to my family, to like what God has created me. And then that changed in the gym, where it became like, hey, when I see guys like Carson or John Brown in the gym who are clearly in better shape than me, I get encouraged and motivated by that now. I get pumped up. I've also done ministry to athletes, had a very too short of a stint as a professional chaplain to some pro soccer players. And I remember being in those rooms and like being inspired by them, and also like, I got to get my, like, you're around pro athletes, like the way that they intentionally care for themselves.
Yep.
And when you're at that level, you have to take care of yourself.
Right.
You like, these things are natural. So it stepped up my game. But going back to what I was originally wanted to say, and this is me being maybe a little bit pushing the envelope, but that's just who I am. I feel like when I was in high school, the taboo topic in the church, in church leadership, etc., was like porn, different types of sexual addictions or whatever. And that was like the taboo thing. We don't talk about that. If I'm just being transparent, I feel like it is more taboo now to talk about physical fitness, making healthy habits, and all that in the church. Like, people are willing to go to war. And I can even sense right now, as I'm saying that, there are people sliding into my DMs right now about to blast me, saying that I'm shaming them. I'm not. There's no shame in this game at all. But I just want to know, from your perspective, why do you think it's so taboo? And two, why is it so important that we talk about these things? I just wanted to hear a different perspective.
That's good, Rob.
Than my own, because I can in my head sometimes. And I'm like, I just need to ask Carson.
Yeah, let's go there. Let's talk about it.
Can we go there? Is that all right?
That's perfect. No, I appreciate you sharing too, man. Couple things. I feel like I might dance around it, then I'm going to attack it. First thing I want to say, and I was taking some notes, kind of meditating before this, because this is a really important conversation, and it's something that I've existed in for a few years now. Number one is just to your point, and I think that you spoke it great. I want to be kind. I want to be kind, and I want to be compassionate. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to be aggressive and accountable. I think with any of these type of topics, like, if you can approach it with kindness, be conversational, be inviting, a lot can happen. I think in any of these subjects that we might kind of dance around, it is easy to get fired up and to get critical and then to divide pretty quickly. Yeah. And I just, the more that I've meditated on this and being in this space, I'm just like, Lord, make me kind, make me kind, make me kind. I'm not really trying to call everybody out all the time, but I just love to have a conversation. I just love to kind of see where they're coming from. So that leads me to this point. Accountability is not exciting, but it's necessary.
Yep.
It's so necessary. I love that you kind of spoke about, your gym experience, right? It's like, I may not be excited about this on the first day or two, but over time, because I'm putting in reps and I'm asking questions and I'm choosing to be a learner, I realize that it's very necessary and it's helpful and it's encouraging, which is like so many things that we do. One of the things that I was meditating on about just the taboo topic of fitness and personal health. And I hope this makes sense. And I thought about it for a long time, and me and John have talked about it a lot. Me growing up, and I think even in the day and age we're at, which is really like a very sexually perverse, life altering, like, we're going through a lot of changes in the world right now, the past 3 to 5 years. Yeah. But I think I look at the past 20 years, and it's just crazy to think how simple, even before I gave my life to the Lord, how simple it was to say, sex, drugs, rock and roll, porn, men being prideful. Those are really all the things. And that's what you heard. And it came clear to me in my early 20s, because I was a trainer on the side, and I really did love the Lord, and I had great mentorship. And I think all those things are very supportive to your attitude that you're going to carry around a topic like this. But I remember the first few conversations I had with some leaders, and thankfully I had some leaders and mentors around me that were pretty healthy. But I remember like listening to some messages around those topics, the big ones that we hear, and thinking to myself, man, like, I know gluttony's in the scriptures, right? And I'm just a young guy just kind of looking at this. not being overly critical, just kind of saying, I know gluttony's in there. I know that, being obese or being overweight, like these are some things that could be very detrimental to a person, their health, their family. These are also personified things that really, I think, come from a lot of internal damage a lot of the time. So, they're tough. But one of the things that, as I begin to see it, and I was just asking myself, like, man, like, why is it okay? And I guess I'm going to go there too. Like, why is it okay to just hammer alcohol, drunkenness, porn, and be 80 pounds overweight while you're speaking that? Like, why isn't it talked about? Again, man, I may love that individual who's preaching that or speaking that or in a room, but man, I just would like to have conversations around it, because it's not about weight and it's not about the scale, but it's of how much are we, because sin really is just an indulgence of things that aren't of God.
Right.
And I'm not being food specific, but all things in life can be idols. And so when I look at it and why I think it's tough, this is the thing that I was thinking on as we went into today, is I think, and I hope people see this with me, I think the thing about the body, and I think the thing about health, and I think the thing about weight and look and appearance and just breaking down that potential issue is it's very public to personal and personal to public. So what I mean by that is you can't hide your body.
Yep.
You can't hide your body. Like, for porn, you can hide it. Even drinking, you can hide it. Or in Christian circles, I mean, I don't want to go here, but I think if people are having a glass of wine or doing anything like that, they almost feel like they have to hide it, and they can. That's going to happen with cocaine. That's going to, like, anything we could talk about. But the interesting thing as we're going here about the body is you can't hide your body. You got one body, and you got to go to the grocery store, and you got to go to the event. And so, the body is just sometimes manifesting some of the things that you are internally dealing with. And, could be depression, anxiety. Again, I'm trying to just tiptoe into this conversation because I love it so much. I've talked to so many people about it. And I think my heart is, John, I asked you this the other day, nobody in ministry will raise their hand and say, I don't want to be healthy. No one does that. Like, no one's going to say, I don't want to be healthy, man, but thanks for offering me that. Every person wants to be healthy. Why are the most searched things going into January 1? 6-pack abs, drop 10 pounds, better beach body. And again, I'm not even saying these are Christian components, but people want to be healthy. People want to play with their 1-year-old kid. People want to be old and gray and say, man, I could still be active with my boys and my girls and the family.
I love those guys in the gym.
You said what?
No, I love those like 70, 80-year-old guys in the
so
gym
inspiring.
still crushing it.
Yeah,
like,
come on.
That's what I want to be. 50 years from now, that.
And that does pump me up too, even just maybe sometimes the aesthetics. And another thing that I would say is, I think when we're talking about Christians or Christian leadership specifically, because I feel like that's more of my space, we are not, and Carson or BHP or you guys on this podcast, we are not saying, look like Hercules, look like Superman, look like Wonder Woman, or it's not enough. For me, I am an extremist. So for a lot of what I do, I've had to channel my energy personally or corporately with people of like, I don't want people to say they have to do what I do. I may go all out all the time for the sake of the fitness and performance, but that's kind of my thing. And that's why I feel like I've asked the Lord to grant me kindness and wisdom around this topic, just to say, man, we all want to be healthy and we only have one body. And a lot of the times in leadership, you guys know, just being in leadership so long, specifically in the pastoral spaces, I think the longer you go, one, you need to have the performance, the sharpness, the clarity to think, all of those things, thinking, clarity, sharpness, center around personal fitness, personal nutrition, personal sleep. I mean, these are facts. Like, this is something we're just throwing out there. And those things are very, very important. And then, no one wants to be sloppy. Nobody voluntarily says, man, I just love being sloppy. I love being known as that. And a mentor asked me a question one time, which again, I'll plug that again. I feel like multiple times in this podcast, I've said a mentor. I mean, man, one of the things that's changed my life for anybody that's my age or under is I've got 20, 30 mentors per season to say, man, can you give me some wisdom? Can you give me some feedback? I mean, that's just been so powerful for me. But one of the questions that I thought about for this question too is, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be known for? And I think in the health space and that taboo topic, it's like, man, that guy is sharp. He's excellent. He's healthy. He's up early. He's kind to people. Like, I think these are things that we really value. And we see in the scriptures, apparent with just the fruits of the spirit. I'm not saying that good fitness is a fruit of the spirit, but what I'm saying is these things come from walking in good health and walking in good habits and walking in good routines. Again, earlier, I mean, accountability is not exciting, but it's necessary. These things are not like, you may not wake up and be like, man, I'm so ready to do this. Let's just dominate. But I think that's where it's hey, I need to reflect on this. Yeah. Like, what am I known for? Am I good in this area? It's good. Which is basic leadership questions. Like, am I good here? So the original thing, the public to personal and personal to public, I just think it's a really unique thing when I think some of us want accountability, but then when it comes to our own body and our own mirror and our own home and our own family, I mean, that's how the world works, right? It's like, we want to give everybody critique and accountability until it comes to our stuff. Wow. And I think we have to, and that's not comfy for Carson either. But we have to be willing to say, I'm going to face the mirror. I'm going to face my health. I'm going to face my lifestyle. I'm going to face my habits. I'm going to face the conversations with my friends and my family that scared me. I mean, just going through all of it, that is great leadership 101 because it allows you to grow. And if you aren't growing, you're dying.
You and I had a conversation recently, Carson, about how sometimes church staff meetings, or maybe if you lead a young adult ministry or youth ministry, these gathering spaces, and you even talked about it with your young adult ministry, fried chicken, right? You just fried chicken and biscuits, right? They tend to be the most unhealthy spaces. We fill up, we get together with our church staff and we get all these unhealthy foods. And you said that you've been challenging some of that in personal, God-honoring, kind conversations to say, guys, let's be discerning and think about that for a second. Do you show up clear-minded with lots of energy when you put that on your fork or you put that in your body? Right? It's just simple garbage in, garbage out, right? If you put garbage in, you can expect to feel like garbage when you walk out. And so the reality is I'm thinking about leaders who are listening to this podcast that have responsibility to lead other people. And I want to put that conversation, even though that isn't necessarily a part of this podcast, into this podcast and say, think about not only how you're stewarding your own body, because this is really a stewardship issue.
Correct.
But how you're stewarding the people that you're leading. Are you a part of the problem? And are you leading well in this area yourself first, but the others around you? I think we can do better. And I think that was a really cool conversation, really important. Let's talk about this because there's a lot of young influencers out there right now. And I see this with a lot of young guys that are starting their own fitness Instagrams, right? And they're flexing. And honestly, I'm inspired by the next generation and their passion for fitness. But I also think that our bodies can become idols when our body is really supposed to be the temple of the Holy Spirit. Can you unpack that for a moment for us? Because we need to make sure that we don't swing all the way to our body, because fitness can become an idol.
The other extreme now.
Our body can become an idol.
Without a doubt.
Right?
I'm tripping over tripods every time I'm in the gym recently. Like, it's like
tripping over tripods.
That's a word. Yeah. That's the next sermon series right there.
Oh, it's awesome.
No, I love the question because I've dealt with it. I deal with it all the time, to be honest. I think certain people love certain things and get fired up about certain things. And for Carson Case, hard work, sweat, grittiness, just going all the way, all the time. Like, those are some of the things that I enjoy in the fitness space. So I've had to, which again, I think is important to just like, you have to walk with the Lord, walk quietly and reflect often. And leadership is not just leadership, but it's personal leadership. So I think personally, the Lord is revealing to us and showing us through the word that often, we have to, and there's, you see it all through like Matthew, 1 through 6, 7, you see it Sermon on the Mount to really look at ourselves before we critique others, to look at ourselves. And I think that's where idols, and I said it earlier, all things can be idols. I mean, artistry can be idols, music can be idols. Like we can go on, food can be idol, fitness. But for me, I've had to just, John, I've had to really select moments in my year, and also just time slots where I can reflect on this and know that, okay, like this is important to me. This is also my job. This is something that I believe God's called me to work in and to minister in. But just because it's natural to me and it's something I get fired up about doesn't mean that it can't be a stumbling block to me, which really roots me back to, I think, great personal leadership is I've got to be in a constant state of two things. One, I'm desperate for God every day. And then two, I've got to get quiet and reflect with God. I think great leaders reflect often. So that really has just led me really in the past 2 years of doing this strongly. And even this past year, I just got back from a retreat in the mountains in North Georgia with 6 men. And we talked about all things from mental to spiritual to the body. And we did this thing called a personal fitness board. And, it's fun getting around guys and saying, hey, grade yourself. Let's talk about numbers. Let's talk about hard questions. But, we asked that same question. And I was wanting to be vulnerable in that too, of just because fitness is your thing and it's important to be healthy, doesn't put you out of bounds to make it an idol in your life. So you have to be aware and you just have to keep being desperate for the Lord.
Yeah, that's good, man. So good. And I love that answer, that reflection. You also said something earlier that I think it's crucial in this conversation, making yourself accountable. Do you have people in your life that can speak into you and call you out and say, hey, is this becoming a little too important in your life? Is this a little too important with your focus? And making sure, I don't remember which theologian said, our hearts are idol factories, right? We're constantly looking for something to put our treasure into. This is more important than God. This is more important than God. And we just need to make sure that we keep the main thing, and just know our proclivity to have hearts that are idol factories. So this podcast, as we kind of close out, is all about practical handles. We want to give our listeners, our community, practical take home things that they can do. If someone, because we're going into the new year here, right? And people are already thinking about this. The gyms are about to be full for the next 2 weeks. And then everybody, slowly trickles out. We're not looking about creating 2-week kind of leaders. We want lifetime leaders that really can grow and level up their own physical health, their nutrition. What would you say to the listener that's all in? They're feeling the conviction, the loving, kind conviction of the Holy Spirit, not the guilt, shame-filled kind, but the loving conviction of the Holy Spirit going, hey, I do need to focus in on this. I do have some goals. I do want to level up. I do want to be better. I want to have a reputation that says I care about these things. What are some practical first steps that they can take, Carson, to really go into the new year and keep it going through the end of the year?
I love the practical stuff. I think I'm going to say this as we start closing out. And I really want this to hit home for some people. I think maybe people will listen to me, and I know you guys are living that out. And I know we've mentioned the word fitness and performance and health. And I run a business that's called Bulletproof Human Performance, which just sounds aggressive, in health and fitness. But I mean this when I say this, and clients that I coach or teams of men that I live with and work with, and really all the time to myself, fitness is not the most important component of this conversation. The solution to this conversation is not, in my eyes and in my heart and in my time with God, is not get fitter, get better. That is a component, but it's not the main thing. I think it is, do you want to lead better? Then you need to survey some of these things in your life. I always say that BHP is not necessarily a fitness company. It's leaders, community, and accountability. It's a greater lifestyle. This is a life thing. It's not a fitness thing. And I think sometimes I love how you guys have kind of just been vulnerable in this. If we can get extremely honest with ourselves, I think when we hear these talks and these podcasts, we can challenge ourselves to say, ooh, does this make me uncomfortable? Ooh, did he say something that just made me mad? I kind of want to comment or DM. And it's just like, man, like the best thing I could tell you in love is just take a good hard look at your life. Take a good hard look at your leadership and your lifestyle and the way that you do things. And if you can personally assess that and then come back and have a conversation about it, we can convene. But I just don't want it to be that. And I want it to be personal, and I want it to be leadership, and I want it to be kingdom. Like these are long-term lifestyle steps. So step one would be look at your life. And here's how I would break that down. And this is the way that I coach people is I think this time of the year, it's a perfect time to say, let's look at my life, and not in the way of like, well, it's good and it's bad and she's bad and they're tough and I could have done better, but oh, well, new year, new me. Like that's weak. We have to be a little bit more specific. So the way that we would break it down is say, hey, look at your life. Look at 5 F's. Look at faith. Look at your faith. What does that even look like in your life right now? Walking with the Lord, serving with the Lord, giving with the Lord. Number 2, what does your fitness look like? Get honest. What would you grade it? A to F, just like we're in elementary again. How many days did you go to the gym or go play a sport or just get outside in the sunshine? What did you eat? When did you eat it? How many times did you eat it? How did you feel after it? How do you sleep? Do you rest well? Number 3 would be fun. Look at fun in your life, which is a hard one for me, and maybe probably for you guys too. If you're a leader, you're ambitious, like fun can be hard to come by, because sometimes you're like, well, if I'm having fun, am I really like working and leading? Like maybe I shouldn't have fun. And so I had a mentor pour that into me of like, look back at your life and say, hey, like what were memorable, joyous, fun moments that just made me more joyful in my year? It just made it better, and I didn't have to perform for it. The other one would be family, and the last one would be finance, which probably is a whole other podcast, that I've learned through the years of just look at your family, your relationships. We all have some hard stuff through our families. We all have some hard things that we're dealing with, from a discipline standpoint with our money, but just look at your life and assess those 5 categories. That's what I would say. I would look at when you wake up and when you go to bed and how that makes you feel. I think that's big for me in the performance space. That's something I'm constantly working on. I'm a guy that wakes up really early, but sometimes I go to bed really late. And I'm not saying that's the best thing. That's something I'm trying to work through. But I think an adequate wake up time where you can say, hey, before the world gets loud, I'm going to get quiet with God. I think that's really important for a leader. And if you got the kids, man, then, by 7:15, the house is already chaotic. So if you didn't hit it before 7:15, it's donezo.
True story.
So I think morning and night routine. I think a big question, you can tell I'm asking like a lot of questions, and I think it all leads back to personal reflection. Practical step is choose to go earn something. Man, I could really dive deep into this one. And shout out to my dad. I think he really always coached me in this, but nobody likes hard things. But I think like when you divvy it down, when you earn something, it just feels good. When I do the Murph workout, for Veterans Day, Memorial Day, things like that, it's like one of the hardest workouts you can do. It's not fun, but when you earn it, you're like, man, like I feel great. I feel like a beast. I feel like I can conquer and accomplish anything. So practical step is, I would say, put something on your calendar in the next 30 days. It's a morning, it's a night, it's a challenge, it's an event, it's a program, it's something with us. Like, I don't know what it is, and say, I'm going to choose to earn something, because it will be difficult, but it will be valuable to me. Yeah. I would say very fun one. And John, I don't know how much more we have time to get into that, but I was just laughing at just, the church and the food and the workspace. And I'm going to kind of root this down to a practical clutter step is survey your space. So, man, I think bad leadership, and it will manifest itself into a lot of worse things, I think, is, man, look at your car, look at your desk, look at your notebooks, look at your shoes, look at, go to your closet, just declutter and begin to kind of survey, like, what does my space look like? Because I've found, and maybe this is comedy, but the more clutter, the more craziness, the more lack of excellence, like the worse of a leader. And that's something that we really teach, is just saying like, hey, like straighten up, survey your space, check it out. If you can't think straight, it's probably because I'm looking at your desk and there's 1,000 things on it every day. So that's another thing. The last thing, practical step. There's, some of our programming, we've got an online training club. We've got 1v1 coaching. We've got a men's development group called COBRA, which stands for Character, Ownership, Brotherhood, Resilience, and Accountability. It's how I train and live with guys and motivate guys and walk with them. And, we love it. I think, there's a lot of forces you could join with us in that. But I was going to say, identify your relationships. I think sometimes, and John, you mentioned this last week on our phone call. Some of the times it's not just you that's unhealthy. It's the people you hang around that cause you to be even in greater detriment to your health. Mm-hmm. And I think until we recognize who we hang around and what they do and how they do it and what they drink and how they order and what they do and what they don't do. I mean, I heard a great quote the other day about relationships. It's not about who does what, it's about what they don't do. And that was really, really big for me. If I want to survey my relationships practically and say like, man, am I really running with the best people? Am I really running with people that really relates to where I want to go and what I have dreams for? With the Lord, with my health, with my family, with my kids, like what do those look like? So just some practical things I throw out there.
Ooh, Carson Case heaping spoonfuls of conviction and challenge here today.
There's so many things that I know I'm just going to come back and look at this. That's going to challenge me.
That last one, Carson running with you from a distance has helped me be a better leader. Just the way that you steward this one life that God's given you, and you steward the body that he's given you so that you can reach maximum performance and do all that he's called you to for the long haul. Thank you for that. You're a gift to the church. You're a gift to me. Rob's been one of those. Yeah. I love what you said. Pick a challenge and then find some people to run with. Find your wolf pack, right? Find some people that challenge you. We're in a group that we have a text thread on Instagram and just on our phones called Swole Like PK. Our pastor, his name is PK. And for his age, dude is a beast. He's pretty swole. If he wears the right shirt, you can see them triceps popping when he's preaching. So shout out to Pastor Kevin. But that's what our group is called. And we are pushing and inspiring each other to be better. And we're all at different levels. Yeah. But we're all pushing for the same thing, to be better. So I love that. And I just want to say, Carson, you are a prophetic voice to the church. Yeah. This is needed now more than ever, because I do believe, I know everyone's like, hey, end times. I mean, you look at the sign of the times and you read your word and you can't help but see that we're nearing an end, and we have to be able to run the distance for the long haul. I don't know how much time it is. I'm not getting into that kind of stuff, but I think our time is short, and I don't want to burn out. I don't want to fail out. I don't want to realize I don't have the energy to show up for those most important spaces, for the most important message, for the most important people in my life. I want to run the race well and not get tripped up and not have to be gassed out, right? I want to do it well, because I'm going to stand before God. Remember, we talked about this being a stewardship issue. I want to stand before God and I want to hear him say, well done, good and faithful servant. Yeah. And so I just hear him speaking that over you. This is my son in whom I'm well pleased. Carson, you are helping leaders steward the call that's on their life. You helped us steward the call that's on our lives as listeners. And I believe that God is going to increase what you're doing, not only your dreams, but your resources. And I believe some of those dreams that have felt like they're dead or they're not going anywhere are about to explode this next year. And so we're praying that over you. We're believing that. I hope that our community, our fresh leadership community, could take advantage of what you have to offer with the one-on-one coaching and just with the Bulletproof humans and some of the community groups. I think there's some of you listening that need to get on one of those mountain retreats with Carson. You're looking for a solution. You're wondering why you can't. Every single year you have the same goals, but you're not going anywhere. This might be the thing that you need to do. This might be it right here. So thank you for sharing your gift and your passion with us. And I think there's some young leaders out there that are hearing what Carson's talking about, and they're going, I want to do that. You inspired some people to lead in this space within church world. And within the faith community, faith and fitness together, those should go together. Why wouldn't they? Right. And so thank you for inspiring that in us. And thank you for inspiring us to be better and sharpening us to be better. We appreciate you.